Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Bachata Timing for Dancers. And so, the purpose of this live course, live class today, the discussion, it's really for dancers or people that are already have a fairly solid foundation starting on the first beat of the music, starting bachata on one and touching on four. So, perhaps you feel really solid at that timing, have been dancing it for years or for a short time, but you feel relatively solid on that and want to start your exploration or continue your exploration dancing various timings starting on the 1, 2, 3, or 4 in bachata as it's social danced in the Dominican Republic. So let's start off while we all kind of gather here with watching a social dance video that I filmed in the Dominican Republic. And, let's see as we sort of get warmed up here if you can see some of the different timings on the dance floor. So I see all 4 timings. Can you spot them all? Hey, so that was good. I like that one. Who out there, you can let me know in the comments, did you see all 4 timings? If you look around at the different couples, of course, we see couples that have started on the 1, on the 2, the 3, and the 4. Great song. They're dancing with ease. Again, I filmed that. That was at a club called La Roca in the Dominican Republic. If you head toward San Cristobal and keep going toward Yaguate, a little campo there. So that was a cool spot. So this class, again, today, if you have a little space around you, there will be opportunities to, try some of these tips out and to do a little dancing on your own. If not, you can sway along, dance along in your chair, or you can watch this back at a future time, watch the video back, because we are going to be I'll give you some time and space to put this actively into practice if you'd like. And today in this class, we're going to be focusing on dancing or starting on the 3. So starting on the 3rd beat of the music, bachata timing again. 4/4 timing, so there's 4 beats, and within those 4 beats, the 5 essential instruments and the voice all have their role, and depending on the song and what they're doing, have various levels of freedom within those roles. So we're going to be really working on one timing today, and that will be starting on the 3. And I'm going to give you tips on how different ways you might start the dance, what I hear, what you might hear, in order to stay solid timing wise when dancing on that timing. And yeah, so it's gonna be a fun class. We're also gonna at the beginning here look at some social dance floors. Let's look at one more social dance floor as everybody gathers here, just to that concept of when dancing in the Dominican Republic. And again, as we mentioned in the live yesterday, the follow often starts the bachata dance. And so as a lead, You may have one follow that starts on the 3, and then you may have another follow that starts on the 1, or you may be dancing with the same follow, and on one song they start on the 4 and the next song on the 2. So, people do have preferences, but, it's often not a consciously thought out thing what timing per se a person's dancing on. It's not really counted out as such usually. So we're going to get into that. Let's watch one more social dance floor, or a couple, and then we'll kind of get into some tips and have you all up or in your chairs putting some of this into practice, right? So we saw this one yesterday, right? Here comes the break, motion through, and they continue. So, okay, so we are warmed up, we are ready, and we're going to get you started. So I've pulled out a number of videos. Again, if you're just joining us now, we're going to be working on and give you some tips on starting or dancing on 3. So your first of 3 steps will be on the 3rd beat of the music, and if you're in the box step, which I recommend, so if you're kind of practicing along and dancing in the box step, your first of 3 steps will be on the 3, which makes your 1, your third step will be happening on the 1 of the music, and as you come back and forward, you'll be on the 1 of the music. You'll see in the dancers, but I've picked out a number of individual social dancers where they're dancing on the 3. And when we get to that section of the class, if you do have space or wherever you are, you're welcome to stand up and with that video and with that song that's playing, put it into practice. Because, when you're starting this timing, it helps a lot to have a partner that's on the same timing and solid. And because that gives you something to hold on to and a sense of freedom as well. You can play a little bit more and you can come back to that. Now, obviously, if you're in physical connection with that partner, that can make it that much easier. But, visual connection with the partners help as well. So that's one tip and one way to start practicing is once you're able to break down the different timings, you can sort of create a playlist of videos on a particular timing and start then to practice along, visually connecting with that partner, which will help you stay on beat. Again, this particular class is specifically for dancers that already have a pretty solid foundation starting on the first beat of the music, or you're already along your way dancing on multiple timings but just want more practice or more kind of a different point of view. Okay, so that's where this class is. So if you're a complete beginner, welcome. You can join us as well, but this class assumes some level of understanding of bachata music, the instruments, etc., because that will help a lot. Okay, so as we mentioned, this is a really important skill when dancing in the Dominican Republic, but also in Dominican communities around the world, and for that matter, communities, any social dance communities where there's bachata, where principally it hasn't been learned or taught through organized classes, So various areas in the Caribbean, but I mean, it may be social dance all over, in various states of the US. So depending on what community or club or, place you're dancing, this versatility to dance on various timings can be very helpful in creating relationship and communication with others and just participation. So it's a cool skill. It can be difficult if you're already really solid on one timing. And I know a lot of communities out there, it's principally you start on one, touch on four. And I understand that. So it can be hard to practice at times or implement these skills. But I think it's a worthwhile journey for those of you who want to undertake it, okay? So, again, we've seen the social dance videos, and this one big thing I want to mention too is there may be people watching that they already dance on multiple timings, and they organically learn. They learned through social dancing, whether it was in the Dominican Republic or with family or different places, and they're already coming to it with that experience of, maybe not conscious awareness of even what timing they're starting on, but they feel the music, they dance musically, you're solid rhythmically. And so that's great as well. If you're already there, you don't necessarily need to overthink it and need to this same level of kind of breakdown of the instruments that others may need if you're already far along on really being solid on just one timing. Okay, so wherever you're at, that's okay. We all come at it from different points of view. I shared yesterday my story, my personal story, which might be helpful as we start this class. Is I didn't really learn bachata through classes. It was more through social dancing. But because I had a few salsa classes and, I had seen bachata danced in lines. But however it was, I sort of got it in my head without even thinking about it, and it made sense musically to start on one and touch on four. And that's what I did for many years, and even as I studied abroad in the Dominican Republic, that's the timing I danced on. So I lived there for a year studying abroad, social dancing. And now I look back and realize, people were dancing on other timings around me. People were trying to dance other timings probably with me, or the fall was trying to start. But that was kind of where I was at. I then did the documentary with Joanne. I still hadn't realized, living with him over the period of time. And then it was shortly after that, as I, started doing more video work with dancers, filming social dancing, the light bulb was like, wait, what's going on? Those seeds, they had been planted earlier, but I sort of started figuring it out. And then I had to kind of break down my dance and take a few steps back in order to rebuild and be able to feel comfortable dancing on multiple timings. But it did take a while. I kept kind of falling back to the one because that's what I heard. That's what I musically understood. So that's where I was at. That's where many of you are at too, because of either learning through classes or the communities you primarily dance in, whatever it may be. And so there's nothing wrong with that. And again, there's nothing wrong with starting on one, dancing on four, even coming from rooted bachata, because that's one of the primary timings that is danced in the Dominican Republic as well. But it's not the only timing. So that's what we're working on today. And of course, if you are a teacher, whatever perspective you come from, you may want to listen to this just in order to better serve your students or understand where some of your students may be coming from. So whether you're a dancer, a teacher, both, hopefully it's both, right, if you're a teacher. So we will kind of tackle that. So, one question before starting. Will this mess up my timing on one? This is something I've even asked myself. I didn't really ask myself this when I undertook the journey, but, there was a little bit of a period of confusion. Of course, when I first started learning these different timings, I would fall back oftentimes onto the one. If I tried stuff, I would be like, okay, now I'm back on the one. I need to really consciously try to stay on these other timings. Then it became more organic. Probably first on the 3, which we're going to be working on today, then on the 2, then on the 4. So it was a process for me. And, it's possible that for a while that like your whole relationship with the timing might get a little bit, your mind might expand in that way and things might not feel the same way. It's sort of like if you've had Carlos Cintas or another person's musicality class, and someone points out the rhythm guitar or the second guitar, and then all you can hear for a while is the rhythm guitar, and you're wondering, will I ever hear the totality of the song again? Well, yeah, it comes back around. So, this is a process. Sometimes when learning something new, it can feel a little uncomfortable at first. You just keep going through, keep remembering what it's all about, connecting with the music, with the emotion, with yourself, with others, with the culture, and, you'll be okay. So that's one thing. Then another kind of question statement is, for others that already are just dancing or dance on all timings is, this class feels like you're overthinking it. Shouldn't I just dance organically? And the answer can be yes. This type of breakdown isn't necessary for everyone, but it is helpful. It was helpful for me because of the place I was at in my dancing, and I think it has been helpful and can be helpful to others. Again, if you've primarily, especially for years, the longer you've been on solid on one timing, sometimes the more difficult it is to kind of break that down and explore a different path. So I can agree with that. Let's do one more social dance video. If we have any questions before we start, then we'll specifically talk about on 3. So the couple on the left, I see them dancing on 1. Couple, the man in black with the hat, dancing on 2. Tapping on 1, right? The couple now very far behind the beer bottle on the left, dancing on 4. So their first step of 3 is on 4. Yes, okay. So we are ready to start focusing on 3. So I've got some videos pulled, and I'm also going to share some tips. And so again, if you have a space where you can get up and dance a little bit later, but here pretty soon, it would be helpful. Otherwise, I sort of dance whether I'm in the car, in a chair at times. You can still imagine the timing, imagine the steps in your head, right? And in your body. So we've got tools for the journey. These are things sort of that will be helpful. And many of you on the stream already are super solid on this. And so, many of you have taught this or even taught it with me or in your own community, so you're super solid on this. But it doesn't hurt to just to think of these items as kind of, these are your tool bag. This is like your backpack you take along on this journey of dancing multiple timings. And, the first is hearing or connecting with the 5 essential bachata instruments, right? So we're not going to have an extensive breakdown of those today, but if you've had a class in this with variety of instructors, again, Carlos Cinta was really the first in bachata to break these down, and with Yasso Records, they did some amazing bachata breakdown work, and so you can look that up and find that, but really go back to understanding some of these sounds, and then whatever timing you're already solid on, I want you to think, what is it that you're hearing? What is it you are connecting with, let's say on your touch, on the 4, like if you're starting on 1, touching or tapping on the 4, what sounds throughout a song, and it may be multiple ones, and it probably is, because they're all in relationship, but what are you hearing? What is propelling you on that first beat? What are you hearing? What sounds? And if you can identify what you're already connecting to, that's going to be very helpful when it comes time to, let's say, be on the 3 and figuring out, well, where are those sounds now in relationship to my step? Okay, so becoming familiar with those steps, connecting with them, it's always a big thing. And so we're going to, 3 essential ones for today, especially on the 3, would be the bass line, right? So in the bass line in derecho, we've got doom, 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 1, doom, 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 1. So boom, that first full long note, right? That's your 1. So, if you're in a dance club, wherever you are, unless you're listening to it on a cell phone where you have no bass, but any club, any dance environment, that 1, that bass line, you should be able to connect that sound to the 1, right? To the 1, there's your 1. And so if you can hear that sound, and then as far as dancing on the 3, let's say we're in a box step, where we've got 3, 4, 1, and that 1 is coming forward, and then we've got 3, 4, 1 musically. 3, 4, 1 musically, right? So that 1 in the music, that bass line, now is happening on our forward and back. So whether you're in a forward or back step, a box step, but all these Dominican foundational basic steps, when you're on the 3, it's going to start to feel really good because you're dancing with a partner, you have that connection, and there's a certain intention as you come forward, they come forward towards you. And with that emphasis that often happens on the 1 of the music, both lyrically, both with the bass line and all the other instruments, we can intuitively hear kind of the emphasis of that 1. It makes a lot of sense when you're dancing on the 3, coming with that forward and back, right? So we'll see that in dances, but connect with the instruments. Another tip or tool for our backpack on this journey is the bachata foundational steps and shapes. So we've got our instruments, we've got our connection with sounds, music, the rhythms. Now what we want, what's going to be really helpful, because I think this journey would be a little more difficult just in the side basic. Not that there's something wrong with the side basic, but it's a different journey. But if you go on this journey with the foundational basic steps from the Dominican Republic, so box step, box variation, diagonal box, forward and back, those shapes, there's a lot of wisdom you know, from those shapes. There's a lot of wisdom from these instruments and kind of that connection. And so that's going to be a great tool in the journey as well. Next is connecting with the music, emotion, and ease. So just going back to those initial important connections, connect with the music, with your own emotion, you know, with your own self and your emotional connection with the song, and with the, if you're dancing with another person, with them, with the culture, you know, and do it with ease. You don't have to do too much. You know, we have our tools and tips and the things that are going to help us, but then we also, the things that will make it more difficult, the journey more difficult, is if you're not able to sort of, during this process, let go a little bit of performing, of performance, of footwork, of moves, of sort of that mentality. Because you'll find, if you're really solid and have been dancing on one timing, starting on one, touching on four, and you've learned a whole set of footwork, moves, things, you feel comfortable, you've learned it in that one timing, and now if you try to just purely implement that in those patterns in these other timings, it's not going to work, because you're going to say, well, that doesn't make sense musically at times, right? And so you have to then take those things you learn, take that footwork you learn, the syncopated steps, all these things, but you have to find a new way to connect it, perhaps, you know? And so you need to let those things kind of bubble out, flow out, let it flow instead of, you know, overdoing it. So when you're first starting the journey, or even if you're on it, just go back to, you know, it's good enough, and it's great all day long to do the basic, right? If you can do 3 steps and touch and feel the music, connect with your partner, you can stay on time, that's great, right? So be satisfied with that. And then our last, which we just mentioned, is letting go of performing and trying to do everything you know within one song, or trying to do everything you know within this new timing that you're working on or that you're learning. So let go of that performing, start just letting things flow, because things will start flowing out that you've already learned. You know, you don't necessarily need to plan it or think it. So those are the tips as we go forward. So this first song, let's watch it first. This couple will be on 3. Then I'm going to talk about ways you might, when you're dancing on 3, ways to start the dance so you can consistently get on 3 as you're working on it. Things to listen for, to stay on timing. And so we'll watch these videos a couple times. Then with this video, I'll have you get up if you want, and you can put it into practice. So here's a couple dancing starting on 3. So there was a change. Now they're on 1, right? So that was interesting there. I pulled this song before even realizing that. And so sometimes that happened. Was it the music, which I know the musician here, was it the music that just kept going, or was it the dancer? Let's see. Let's watch it one more time. So they're on 3. So give me an answer there. Was it the music that changed timing? So was it the music that changed timing, or was the dancers? Did they skip a beat? Someone let me know if you saw that, and then I figured it out. So Next dancer. So, and then we'll come back to that. So we're going to slow down the tempo a little bit. Here we have Juan, who now we're lucky to have living here in Colorado. He's a dance teacher, dancing here with his sister Mildres, and who's a wonderful dancer. And I met her also in the Dominican Republic. So this is a video that they filmed in the Dominican Republic, but they're dancing on 3. So let's watch this video here. And again, really important as we start to do this, pay attention to the bass line. Okay, so with the steps, you're going doom, 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 touch, doom, 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 touch, right? So that third step is happening on the 1. It's happening on, as you're coming forward and back in your box, it's happening on that first beat of the music, okay? So watch this couple. So hear that bass line. And he's just letting the footwork flow out, right? But again, the ease. Now the mambo section. It's so good. It's so good. So you notice the ease. It's sort of like, right? No rush. You know, if things happen footwork wise, you know, you're just kind of letting it flow out. So that's, again, a big help. You don't have to overthink it and overdo it. But hopefully you heard that bass line. We're going to go back to that. I'm going to put that up, and you're welcome on again, and you're welcome to stand up, connect visually with them, and get on timing. So one way to get on the 3, if you're sort of trying to start off on the 3, either in your house or on the dance floor, whatever it might be, is, you know, and let's say you're already really used to starting on the 1, connecting with the 1. So yesterday we looked at, oftentimes in the Dominican Republic, you might start with a rock step touch. So sort of a half a basic. You're going step, touch, and then you're beginning the dance. So if I, as the lead, am doing that, I will take 1 step to the side and back, excuse me, the mic, 1 step to the side and back, step, and then I touch. I mark it, right? I mark my tap, and then I start the first of 3 steps going that way. 1, 2, 3, touch, step, 2, 3, touch. Then I'm in my basic, in my foundation as normal. But I've started the dance with my partner with a step, touch, or just a motion, rock, touch. And that's what's starting the dance. And yesterday in the video we saw, and we saw the video, same video today, we actually saw the follow started the dance with a rock touch, but the opposite direction. She started it with her left, she rock, touch, and then she started her 3 steps and a touch, the basic. So it's a way to start it. So if you're using that rock touch or step touch method to start your dance, and you want to get on the 3, that first step on your rock is happening on the 1, right? You're going 1, 2, and then you're tapping on the 2, and then your first of 3 steps is on the 3. So does that make sense? If you're starting with a rock touch, let's say as the lead, I'm starting with the rock touch, I want to get on 3, so that I want to have the first of my steps happening on the third beat of the music, this direction. I rock or step on the 1, touch on the 2, and then begin the step. And so I mentioned yesterday that this has just become my preference for timing, that if I'm starting the dance, unconsciously especially, or on my own, this is just what I go, without thinking, what I go into. And so I'll step on the 1, rock on the 1, touch on the 2, and then I'm on the 3. And so you have that bass line. Doom, 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 doom. Right? So you hear that 1, that bass line, you step, touch, and begin. If that doesn't make sense, write it in the comments. If it makes sense, good. But let's watch it one more time. Try that. So whether you're a follow or a lead, as I mentioned, a follow, as we saw yesterday, they rock, touched in that direction. Rock, touch, and then they started their step. So you're going to start that rock step on 1, touch on 2, and then continue your 3 steps, and you're on 3. Okay, so this is a great song because the tempo's slow. Try it. Maybe close your eyes, hear the music, see if you can get on the 3. Then look at Juan and Mildred here and see if you're on, see if you're connected. If you're in your chair, close your eyes, get on the timing, then open them, see if you're on. If you're not on, try to get on where they are because they're on the 3. So here we go. So if I wasn't wearing these headphones, I'd practice with you, but I hope you're on. So even on this mambo section, just keep it easy. You don't have to do too much. Stay rooted, stay grounded in that bass. Ooh, that's a margue. That song was about to take us to another level there. So I had to cut it off so we can continue with the class. So if that made sense, if you were able to start with that rock step, that rock happening on the 1, the touch happening on the 2, and then beginning the first of your 3 steps, on the 3, you're in it. So that's one way to get in it. That's the way I sort of unconsciously, it just happens, right? You're connecting, and then you're in your box or you're forward and back. And again, as we mentioned earlier, connect this with your box, diagonal box, sort of in place box, forward and back, because that forward and back motion is going to really help you with these timings too, because they developed together. So hopefully that made sense. Let's watch another couple and see if we can get on this next one. So the middle couple there are on 3. So, okay, so that was an interesting one, and this is going to give us a chance to bring in the bongo, okay? Because on that particular song, and I don't know if it was at that point in time, that club so I was filming that dance, or if I lowered the bass on the recording because it was so blown out. But the bass is less. I can hear the bass less on this song than the last, so it's harder to connect with the bass dancing on 3. But they are dancing on 3. But what you can, another instrument, the more sounds, the more connections you can bring in, the better, right? And so now let's bring in the bongo, which is taki tiki taki buki, taki tiki taki buki, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, buki buki 4. So that sound, buki, that's happening on the lower drum, right there was derecho, in Mahao, it's ta, 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 boop, ta, 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 boop. But you've got that, and it comes back, whether they play, they go off, they do their runs, rolls, you're going to come back to that sound. And so that's another place, you internalize that sound. If you're dancing on 1, which is, most commonly when it's being taught at classes, festivals, that sound, that buki, is happening on your touch, right? It's happening on your 4th step because it's happening on the 4th beat of the music. And so, it's easy to internalize your touch, tap, syncopated step and say, okay, connect with that sound. Now, where is that sound that's happening on the 4? Where is it if you're dancing on 3, right? So where is the 4th beat when you're dancing on 3? In terms of your dance step, in terms of your dance shape. Well, that sound is happening on your 2nd step. So again, we have 3 steps and a touch. So if my 1st step is happening on the 3rd beat of the music, and then my 2nd step, as that comes together there, is happening on the 4th beat of the music. And so that sound, the buki, taki tiki taki buki, on that 2nd step is where that sound is happening. So you've got the bass line on 1, you've got that sound now, right? Well, you've got the bass line, if you're dancing on 3, happening on your 3rd step as you're coming forward and back. And you've got that sound happening on the 4, the buki, happening on your 2nd step. So that may seem a little bit confusing, but again, going back to the beginning of the class, you need to figure out what you hear in whatever timing you feel most solid in. What keeps you solid? What are you hearing? What are you connecting to, And then with those sounds, we each have our own things we connect to. I connect to that sound, I connect to the bass line, I have other things I connect to. But what do you connect to? So let's watch that video again, thinking about that sound, taki tiki taki buki, buki, which is happening on their 2nd step of 3 steps. Here we go. Buki, buki. So good. So did everybody hear that 4th beat of the bongo, the buki, taki tiki taki buki? Okay, if you can kind of figure out where that lies in the step, it helps. It just is. It's that sound along with the bass line that's kind of the way I'm able to, at this point. And again, you don't need to be able to know what timing you're dancing on to dance musically, to be solid timing wise. A lot of the best dancers I've danced with, when I ask them, like, do you know what timing we were on? If I'm friends with them, they're like, no, they're not consciously thinking of it. Like, this knowledge doesn't make you a good or bad dancer knowing it. right? It can help some people on their paths, but there's so many dancers out there that don't have a conscious awareness of timing, but that does not mean they don't have an incredible connection and conscious connection with the music, with the sounds, right? With the instruments. And they may have grown up visually seeing live music and seeing the instruments and associating sounds with them. So don't confuse knowing what timing you're on or where you started with being musically connected or solid timing wise. And that's something that I hear sometimes that, you know, it's not correct at all. So that's important to say. You don't, depending on which path you're on, this sort of like knowing where I started, because if you dance other genres of music, let's take another dance that you've learned socially, organically. It could be pop, it could be hip hop, it could be, you know, you're jamming, it's a street dance, like you haven't ever learned it through classes. Different, and if I'm going to ask you at what, it's 4/4 timing music, maybe you know that, but at what point do you start dancing normally on that particular song? You don't have any idea, and neither do I, right? If you think back at all these other genres that we kind of grew up dancing socially, you know, so the timing thing and the standardization is something that has come with classes, and there are benefits to it, and then there are downsides. Okay, we're gonna get to some questions, some great comments here in a second. Let's go to this same, we're gonna get the same lead, the same guy dancing. We saw this video yesterday. So this one, as we saw yesterday, there's the DJ makes a little mistake, right? The music skips. They're starting on 3, so I want us all to get in dancing on 3. But then the music skips, keeps going, and now they don't miss a beat, they don't miss a step, and now they keep going, don't act like anything happened with the music, and now they're on 1, right? So now their first of 3 steps is on the first beat of the music, they're touching on 4, and so I want you to do that. Keep dancing through the musical mistake, the kind of DJ skip here, and see if you can do that. So again, getting back, we're gonna start on 3. As we did it early, I want you to start with a rock step touch. That rock is gonna happen on 1, your touch is gonna happen on 2, and then you start with the first of your 3 steps, and that's gonna happen on the 3rd beat of the music. Then you're in your box or your forward and back basic, whatever kind of Dominican foundational step you have. So here we go. So I want you to get on time with that bass. You're on 3. So we're still on 3. DJ didn't skip it on that one. It's coming up though. So just let it play. So connect with the bongo as well, the bass and the bongo. Step 2, 3, touch. Here we go. Keep dancing, right? Now you're on 1. Are you dancing out there? So, you know, you can go back and rewatch that, but notice, and again, all these videos I have on my YouTube channel, so you can go and watch the full video and kind of practice this timing. I know a lot of you are going to be watching it after the live, so you can go back, find these videos, and practice this timing on them. But, you know, that's a cool experience because, one, you got to practice socially in the Dominican Republic. Okay, there's a mistake in the music. Generally, keep going, keep dancing through it. Whatever timing you land on, there you go. Keep going, right? Which is what they did. It also gives you a connection within the same dance, same song, a chance to feel that song, the similarities and the differences on 3 and on 1. You know, because you were dancing on 3, then there was a skip, now you're on 1. So, you know, I want to go back to that part. Again, your basic, your foundational step, your connection with your partner, an important point, your whole dance doesn't fundamentally change when you're dancing on different timings, right? The foundations of your dance stays the same. You know, you're not doing a different dance on 3 and a different dance on 1. But what does change within each of those dances, which makes it so cool, exciting, fresh, is your relationship, your steps, your moves in relation to the sounds and the instruments do vary. And so your flow in certain aspects can shift. And so I want to go back, watch this couple again. And when they're on the 3, this time I want us to really pay attention to the lead guitar, and not the melody so much the lead guitar is playing, but as the singing is happening, there's the one and you know, there's this rhythmic playing that happens, 2 and 2 and listen for that note. I'll try to point it out with my hands, but listen to the propulsion, you know, because we're dealing with a polyrhythmic music and there's all these things happening. And so look at the emphasis of sort of their direction in relation to that sound, in relation to the lead guitar and the arpeggio. And then look how it sort of, in a sense, reverses when they're on a different timing. This is kind of maybe a little bit more in-depth concept, but so they're on the 3 right now. Listen to that guitar. Listen to that guitar. Watch their flow. Now as it switches, so that same guitar arpeggio, where is it now in relation? It comes. So again, you may need to go back and watch that video again, but I want you, that arpeggio, that guitar arpeggio, as it's sort of, again, they're not consciously thinking it, but they're connected with the music, and it's sort of propelling a certain emphasis. And when they're on the 3, this is at least what I see and feel in it. It's sort of pushing and propelling them a certain direction, and then when the timing changes on the music and now they're on 1, that emphasis and direction is sort of reversed. They're still marking it, they're still hearing it, they're consciously not thinking about it, but it's happening in the other direction, okay? So let's go back before we go to our next video. We're gonna take a few comments here. Thanks everybody for joining us. So we've got Sid. Hey there, thank you so much for joining. It was great seeing you and your whole team, and Aubrey was on yesterday, and the Amargue Flow Fest. And so thanks for joining us. We got his comment, dancing on the three with just the basics feels the most natural and with the music for me. Love this class. Thank you so much. And me too. And I think it's sort of because of my connection, what I hear in the bass line, that bass line. And if you go back, let's go back to the bolero bass line. The bolero, of course, is a family member, heavily influenced, you could say a parent or grandparent of bachata, right? Bachata was heavily influenced and sort of came out of bolero along with son, merengue, heavy influence, all these other genres, but bolero, a big one. And so the bolero bass line, bachata bass line, boom, 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 boom. Bolero bass line, boom, 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 boom. So it's kind of missing that syncopated element, right? But that three count, boom, which is one, boom, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, is the bolero bass line. So that bass line, when you're on the three, again, we mentioned you're coming forward and back on that bass line, on the one, boom, 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 one. And your tap is kind of happening without a bass line sound, right? But then your other steps are boom, 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 step, 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 right? So it's right on that kind of bolero bass line. And that's why I think it really organically, and it just feels so good. It feels so at ease. You have all the time in the world with it, right? So it feels good. And it's the same with the bachata bass line. When you add that syncopated step, you've still got the essential quality of that bass line happening. So we've got Evita. One problem I keep seeing at socials here in Vienna, students mostly waiting for the one to start dancing. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but instead of finding it in the music, they look at others. So if I get your question right, your statement right, is instead of being able to identify the one on their own in the music with their partner, they're looking around to see where others have started, and then they're connecting and getting on with them. And that's interesting. Yeah, that is an issue, because then you're sort of relying not on your own personal connection with the music, but on kind of a visual understanding of what others are doing. And that, is one of the big challenges if you're a dance teacher you face when teaching social dance timing from the Dominican Republic, is because often in classes we like to start everybody on the same timing, and the students get used to looking to the teachers for the correct timing, let it being counted in on it, and then you get used to one timing. And not only that, you may not become familiar with starting on your own. So especially now, I mean, I'll count people in at different times during the class, but certainly during my classes, during most classes, there are periods both in couples and in social dancing and in lines, less so probably in lines because we're just learning the shape, learning the concept, but definitely in social dancing, I'm not going to count them in. I say start on your own, start where you feel comfortable. Like this song, I'll give them a little musical background, connect them with the music, put the music on, and let them know start. Now, once people have started, if I look around and see beginners or people are having trouble, then I'll do a count them in, or I'll get on that step and catch their eye so they can feel comfortable, get on the timing, practice what we're working on. So you might consider that as a teacher, don't always count them in. And yeah, as far as what we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of people out there, and they haven't learned yet, or they've been taught or have the assumption that, you know, these other timings is somehow musically wrong, you know, is somehow, okay, it's how it's danced socially in the Dominican Republic, but that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it musically right. You know, the song starts on one, so the dance should start on one. That's a whole nother topic, but let me just say that, like, the most recorded bass player in bachata history, Billy Bachata, in an interview he did with me when I said, oh, show me the basic step. You know, for one, he didn't start the step with his 3 steps. He started it with that touch. He said, doom, and he did that touch or tap on the second beat, on the first beat of the music, that bass line, boom, 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 boom. And so he's touching on the one. So that's like the most recorded bass player, you know, that rhythm section, the harmonizing, Joey Veras, Zacarias, Romeo, all these, he's recorded with all these people, doesn't dance just on the one. And when explaining the step to me, didn't explain it with the first of 3 steps on the one. So that's one example to say, you know, it's not, of course it's not musically incorrect to dance on multiple timings, but it is something, you know, it is something, and it can be a challenge to educate people that. And like I said, mentioning my own assumptions when I started bachata, I had assumed for years, living with Joanne, living in the DR, I just had an assumption, not a conscious choice, that I should be starting on one, tapping on 4. So I went through that journey, and I had those assumptions on my own for years while living there. So I don't put anybody down for having those assumptions. I can understand it can be difficult kind of to learn it or figure it out, but you know, it's not true that it's musically incorrect. So let's try another dance video here. This couple as well is on 3. So that bongo step, that buki, that 4th beat is on their 2nd step. Bass line as they come forward and back. So see if you can get on a little more up-tempo song. Okay, so we are back. Now, if you're actively participating in this dance class, if you're kind of getting up or in your chair, dancing on the 3, putting this into practice, let's put a song on. Let's actually put 2 songs on. And so you, at this point, you don't have the visual confirmation of the dancers. We may go back to that after to, you know, give that connection, get that support. So when you just have this song, again, to start, there are a number of ways to get on the 3 and to start with this. But what we worked on earlier, a real easy way, is if you're the lead, and again, even this isn't a rule, but if you're the lead, let's rock step to the right. Let's rock step to our right on the first beat of the music, on the 1, and let's touch or tap on the 2. And then we start right away, we start our 3 steps, and we're on the 3. Okay, then we're on the 3, we dance it as normal. 1, 2, 3, touch, okay? So on the 1, 1, touch, step, 2, 3, and touch, right? So that was our step. So with this next song, we've got this Utopia, and I'm going to start it off. So I just want you to get on the 3 on this one if you can, and then let me know any questions. Hear that bass line.
Ingrato ha sido la vida que no me acaba de matar. Jamás olvido ese día, 15 de noviembre a las 12 del día. La vi en el altar, precisamente cuando el Padre los unió, mi mundo colapsó al momento. Su odio iba a parar, pero elegí que sea feliz, causando incrementar mi sufrimiento. La vi en el altar, una diadema en su cabeza y aquel novio.
That's good. So how did we do? How did we do out there? So that bass line, if I'm correct, and I think I'm correct on this, that actually was recorded by Billy Bachata, who I mentioned I had done the interview with, and he explained that he worked and recorded a lot of the bass tracks for Utopia, for that album, for Romeo's album, in which many of us, of course, know it and play it and dance to it, but in which he does collaborations with a lot of the classic, the musicians that got their starts in the 90s and that golden era and all of that. So again, the bass line's nice and clean there. We can also hear the bongo. Another sound, we're going to do future live streams where we explore dancing on the 2, and we go in depth on that. Then we'll go in depth on dancing on the 4, which for someone that learned on 1, sometimes that can be the most challenging. For others, it's not, but for some that can be challenging. So I want to point out in this song sounds that are going to start helping us in these future explorations. So we have that bass line that we connect to. We have the bongo, that chair or that floor, that the whole, those instruments, everything's kind of sitting on top of all these beautiful adornments. So we have those, but let's listen to the lead guitar here, and not necessarily when the lead's doing the mambo or the melody, but when the lead's playing syncopated, kind of these arpeggios and these syncopated elements as they're singing going on. Here's an example. And what's happening there, those bright, rhythmic, almost propulsive sounds can happen depending on the song. There is variety and variation, but what often happens in many bachata songs is you have a 2. It's like 2, 3, and. So there's 3 and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and. 1 and 2, 3 and. 1 and 2, 3 and. Right? So listen, it's higher than that, but you've got that kind of mark propulsion on this 2, the second beat of the music, and then this follow-up, and sometimes it's more of an arpeggio, but there's an emphasis on the and between the 3 and the 4. So all of these sounds that we connect to in here are things to grab onto, and they become very helpful. Again, we're going back to our toolbox, like letting go, being comfortable and happy and confident just in your foundational. And I shouldn't even say just, because it's so good, but being comfortable and solid and at ease doing the foundations. But as you start to add these other elements, these other sounds are going to come in handy as things to hold on to musically. So let's listen for that lead guitar in this song. So there.
Precisamente cuando el Padre los unió, mi mundo colapsó al momento.
are you able to hear that? Two and. So the and, that syncopated, that marking of the and between the 3 and the 4, that's a really, really common bachata sort of lead guitar sound that especially, you started hearing in the 90s, and as bachata kind of electrified and as this thumb pick style developed as well. So as the guitar sound shifted, that particular way of playing, of accompanying the singer for the lead guitar to accompany and add those elements, started becoming more and more. Let's listen to it one more time. But those elements become very helpful because, if you're dancing on various timings, if you're in the position of you've already for years really danced well, solidly on one, and now you're trying to add more, you are going to be looking for new ways to connect, different sounds, etc., and things to hold on to and to stay on time and to propel you and to emotionally connect with. So the lead guitar is one of them, especially as it accompanies.
Causando incrementar mi sufrimiento. La vi en el altar, una diadema en su cabeza y aquel novio se llevó lo que más quiero. La imagen.
So that song is really great for that sound, but there's tons of good songs to demo that. But that's a new one from the Utopia album. So one more. And Sid had a good observation here. I'll bring that video back up. But there was a couple dancing on 2, and it's so cool, when we watch these dancers, we're also figuring, gosh, what are they listening to? What are they connecting to musically? That's kind of fun. And that's also fun when dancing with your partner. Not necessarily to think it, but to feel it. Like, stop worrying so much about what you're doing for a moment and feel the music through your partner. Like, what are they connected to? And so Sid had we're going to play this couple again. He had this observation. So the couple in white. Let's go back. So the gentleman with the white hat and that couple dancing on 2, 1. They're tapping on 1. And you're right, Sid, you can really hear that with that slap of the bongo, right? That. I love that observation. That's something that I hadn't noticed on that particular dancer. But so what we're hearing in that club and in that particular song with that sound system, you really can hear that high-end slap on the song of the bongo, right? That. The 2 daks, the slap on the 1 and then the 3. Right? And then, of course, we've got the buki on the 4. But those slaps on the 1 and the 3 are very, very prominent, and you can see, especially him, it seems, just musically responding to it, right? Unconsciously. So listen for that slap. That. So that was a great observation. Again, there's all this choice of what to connect to with the music. I've got Isolde. I feel like it highlighted by tap on the second beat on one side of my basics. Yes. I would like to hear more about that specific I know that comment was in relation to that lead guitar element. This here. But I would love to hear more about that, of sort of how it highlighted the tap that's happening on the second beat. So again, on this song, I asked us all to get on 3, right? To get on the third. So we've got 3, 4, 1, and that means your tap is happening on 2. When you're dancing on 3, your tap is happening on the second beat of the music. And so what Isolde is saying is that syncopated element that we were listening for in the lead guitar, the 2, and then there's the and happening between the 3 and the 4. So 2 and 2. That bright sound, she felt and connected with it, and it helped her connect and maybe influenced how she touched, how she tapped, what she did on that her fourth step on the touch. And so let's listen to that one more time. The Romeo song. Everybody get on 3 and let's see if we can hear that aspect.
Pero elegí que sea feliz, causando incrementar mi sufrimiento. La vi en el altar, una diadema en su cabeza, y aquel novio se llevó lo que más quiero. La imagen no puedo borrar.
Yeah, I felt that too. And I was just dancing along here in the chair, but as that arpeggio in the lead guitar, again, not knowing it was coming, not overthinking it, it kind of rolled through. And here in the chair, I found myself doing a triple step or a cha-cha-cha step, right? A syncopated step to that. So that lead guitar happening at that point on this timing is influencing what's happening on the tap and touch. One more song for all of us to practice without. So let's listen to this one. This Joey Veras, from one of his older albums, La Traviesa. Again, this song's talking about kind of that immigrant story. You know, it's a very powerful lyrics, you know, the dream of coming to the US, of coming to Manhattan, and then how the dream becomes a reality and the difficulties along the way. So it's a beautiful song, bachata. Apparently not, I was right before this class trying to figure out who wrote this. You can't always trust the internet, right? Found something, it was like, Joey Veras wrote it. Then I called one of his bass player or messaged him. It was like, who wrote that? You know, he's like, no, it's a Colombian. And so, you know, if someone on there knows who actually wrote it, otherwise I'm going to have to go direct to the source, which is always a good idea for us bachata teachers. You know, try to go to the source, because can't always believe what you find online. So anyway, beautiful lyrics, beautiful song, very emotional. Let's see if we can get on our own on this.
Desde muy pequeño tuve un sueño de viajar y conocer el extranjero. En mi mente yo pintaba rascacielos de colores frescos. Me dijeron que el dinero se encontraba por montones en el suelo.
So definitely check that song out. we're sort of going to kind of wrap up what we learned here and what we explored. And as I mentioned, I would like to take these similar concepts where I'm going to pull a variety of social dance videos where I'll pull a bunch that I filmed where they're dancing on 2, and then we'll do another live where they're dancing on 4, and we'll sort of start to make these musical connections. And there are certain tips. Again, this class specifically for people who feel really solid or for many years have danced starting on 1, as I had early on. How do you start exploring, breaking down, or continuing to feel more comfortable? And as far as just personal preferences, you may not feel, even at the end of this journey, years in social dancing, you may feel more connection or more solid rhythmically dancing on one timing or another. You may be able to dance and socially dance all 4 and have a great time and connect depending on the music and your partner, but you may always feel a little more solid on 1 or 2, and that can be the case. And so on the others, you don't have to do the same type of footwork or everything. You don't have to do everything you know how to do all the time. So another for this Romeo song, Sid mentioned, Isolde had made a comment on this Romeo song here.
Quiero sacar de mi memoria su vestido blanco, el anillo en su dedo.
That's a great example of that requinto. But when dancing, we all got dancing on the 3, that our touch is happening on the second beat of the music. And as I mentioned, that requinto accompaniment, which happens, it happens similarly on many bachata songs. It emphasizes with that bright note, that pluck on the 2, and then the and between the 3 and the 4. And so Sid also, dancing along with that, was able to really feel that, and may have already. I mean, again, a lot of this we're unconsciously already connecting to if we love the music and connect to it. And some of these are just kind of, now it's more into our conscious mind, and it was always in our bodies. But then there are some sounds that we've maybe neglected. Some instruments we've neglected that by bringing a little attention to them, a little more, sort of let them influence us a little bit more, are going to be very, very helpful when dancing on a variety of timings. The rhythm guitar, that syncopated rhythm could come in handy, but we'll get into all of that at a future time. So just to wrap up, going back to the tools of the journey, there we go, that's a good image, right? Happy. Tools for the journey, just to help us on this. Again, write questions if you want to write me a DM or to my email or the bachataclass.com as far as what you'd like to see covered or questions you have. Feel free to do that. But the tools that are going to help us as we start this journey and start teaching it is, first being able to hear those 5 bachata essential instruments. And so when I used to teach with Carlos Cinta a lot, or we would teach sort of master classes or weekends or whatever, if I was teaching multiple timings to people that this was new to it, if it was my choice, I would always want him to teach his instrument class first, his instrument breakdown. Because if a student already has a solid understanding and can hear and feel the bongo, the bass, all of these instruments, knows where they are in relation, if they have that introduction, it makes teaching and exploring in dance variety of timings so much easier. If I'm teaching it on my own and it's an all-level class, I have to often, in which I did in the Reno Latin Dance Fest recently, the beginning 5-10 minutes of my class was exploring the bongo and the bass and the sounds and getting us familiar, then going on to the other timings. So it's that important for students and teachers to start hearing those sounds. And depending on what community you're teaching in, how much time you have, it helps a lot. And so that's one toolbox. The next is the bachata foundational steps and shapes. Again, while teaching the variations and these timing variations, to teach them with a box step or a diagonal box, and to have your students or have dancers to have those shapes already in the toolbox, or to teach them those shapes along with the timing, is going to help tremendously. It's going to help experientially, because as we mentioned, for instance, on the 3, that forward and back, that flow is really helpful and so important when starting to dance these other timings and making it connect. The third tool is, of course, connecting to the music, reminding your students, reminding yourself, why you dance, connect with the music, with your partner, with your own emotions, with the culture, with people, and in so doing, you're connecting and you're letting go of performing, needing to do it all the time. You may need to let go of some of your footwork that you learned on one timing and start from the ground up and let things just bubble out, flow out. So you may need to let go of some of your baggage that you're carrying and bring on some new tools in order to go on this journey. And that is it for the live stream. Thank you all so much for joining me and for your comments. And it was fun. I love this topic, as you know. One thing, because I know many of you are wonderful teachers and have your own communities, also your own online followings, you can consider posting more, whether it's social dance videos or solo dance videos, either for instance, on the 3 or on different timings, or you can bring up elements of these conversations to people, but even just sharing the videos. And sometimes when you share the videos, depending on your community, your online community, sometimes you can mention, okay, I'm dancing on, you can kind of spell out that there are different timings. Sometimes that's good and appropriate and can start a conversation and is necessary. Other times, try to just post something on a different timing and see what reaction you get from your community. Are there questions? Are there comments? You may just post yourself dancing on 3 and then with the song, and you mention other elements, maybe the foundational step you're in, whatever it is, but let people think for themselves, and then those questions and those comments can sort of fuel how you go forward with it. Do you need to answer? Do you need to elaborate? But sometimes, just post social dance videos on a different timing. There doesn't need to be an explanation about the timing at all times. Other times it is very helpful. So doing some of both can be good. So again, thank you so much for joining, and we will see you all. We'll do a on 2 live next. I'll let you know when it's going to happen, but I'll pull the videos and we'll do an on 2 practicum. So we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.